almost at the morning for some reason. But yeah, it's a good day, right? Good lunch? Good. Hopefully you won't fall asleep during that talk. But, there we go. So, first of all, I have a confession to make. The title of the presentation is kind of wrong. No, it's not that sort of confession where I've started doing library apps or anything like that. But I started writing a presentation, and I was in my kitchen, and I was, typing a bit of a proposal, and it had one of those bacon moments, right? So title of the presentation, so I put that as a later. Joke aside, how many of you come from Ruby backgrounds? Wow. Wow, I expected at least one. About 5 years ago, we had a very colorful character, let's call it. His nickname was White Like a Stiff, and he used to have bacon and foxes as a way to present emotions. So it's a bit of a copy of that. Anyway, that's the name of the presentation. So, so how many? Let's do a bit of exercise. How many of you are designers or do colorful stuff? Okay, developers. Good. Project managers. Good. And anyone works for HSBC, by the way? Good. Because I have some beefy but well, it's not a cookie, and I'll cook in a second. So let's start with a joke. How many developers or designers does it take to build an iPhone app or a mobile app for that reason? None. It's not their time. Yes, it's. That's how project managers think. Right? So that's how you end up with things like this. That's the right there, iPhone app. And that's the worst thing you can have in a mobile app. It doesn't look like a website, it doesn't look like an iPhone app, it doesn't look like anything. It's just a collection of things thrown there because someone had to do it. And they needed to be a little mobile. Anyway, so let's play a bit of the devil's advocate, and I'll put my project manager hat on. By the way, I'm a developer as well, so I'm not a project manager. So, let's say you have a project. How do you go about building an app? Right? What do you do? What do you start? Well, first of all, you get a committee, right? So you have a 4-hour meeting to decide when to have meetings. And you decide that the high-level management needs to go outside and off-site meetings for blue sky thinking, no pun intended. But meanwhile, we'll just go back into the office and do a bit of analysis of existing apps. So let's pick one up that's, it's a big business. You probably guess the name of the business. It's a bank. They released a new update to their app, right? The iPhone app, it's in the App Store, it was released 3 weeks ago. So that can serve as a model, right? So that will probably, a lot of people will think that's the way to do it. So let's pick one. HSBC. So that's a customer-facing app. It's not a business-facing app. So they have a similar one. It's not better than this one. That's addressed towards businesses. But this one, you're expecting your HSBC customer, and I've been one for 15 years, so it kind of pains me to talk about this. But this should be, it's a business that has billions, that spends billions on infrastructure every single year. So, right, it's a fresh app, we released 3 weeks ago. Should be able to start where we should make our analysis. So remember, I'm a project manager, right? You can probably tell that from the second. So, download it, really nice. Bam, first thing you see, it's a user license. Does anyone read user licenses? There's a famous case study with American Airlines where they analyzed all the licenses, the TCs across all the different airlines. So not even lawyers actually read those. So they're just boilerplate, text that no one reads. Anyway, let's just assume, well, that's the way to do it, right? We need to ensure that we don't get sued if someone uses the app in the wrong way. And as long as we cover our backsides, it doesn't matter what the customer wants. Nice. Okay. Second screen, you pick your region, right? It's pretty hard to differentiate between Australia and Canada. They're really close. So there's no way to tell if a user is in Australia or in Canada. Anyway, Let alone the fact that you have different app stores for different countries, and you can have a different app for a different country, or you can even go into the phone and find the user preference and see where that user is, what sort of app store he uses, and so on. Anyway, next screen, I picked UK English. By the way, on the previous one, I'm not sure if you noticed, but it says country region, and the list is countries' languages. Anyway, next one, you pick UK English. It tells you that it's going to use cookies. And it tells you that you need to agree in order to download the mobile app, which you are using at the moment. Again, it's something that's been copied from the website. Going forward, you need to scroll down, obviously, and you have that magic tick box. How, no one is actually using a tick box on an iOS app. That's a web thing, right? And that accept button is, by the way, disabled until you tick the box. Anyhow, going forward, go again. The first thing it does, it downloads content. Why? Don't know. Probably doesn't trust Apple Store. Probably 5 days in reviews will add quite a lot to their 6-month schedule of releasing a new version. Anyway, it's downloading content for some reason. Next one. Now look, shiny. Right? Does that look anything like a mobile app? And probably the guys that do iOS will see that not even the navigation bar at the top looks anything. So it looks like a PhoneGap project. Let's put it clear. It's someone has some thoughts building a website. And those buttons at the bottom are absolutely horrendous. Okay, let's give it a go, right? So every time you go, oh, by the way, you have a full website. You have a link to the full website. Okay, so I assume this is the mobile website, right? So now we can see the different mindset and where they start making mistakes. So let's go into the map, find a branch. And this is something usual you do. If you're in central London, you want to find a branch around you, maybe you want to get some money out. So you go in, and what it does, it loads a browser, and in that browser it loads Google Maps. So if you use mobile apps, usually the app will ask you to use the location. In this case, it's actually the browser asking you to use the location. In fact, it asks you twice. One is the app, and then after you load the browser will ask you if you want to allow the browser to have access to the location. And if you notice the URL, there's nothing to do with UK, which I've just selected. It's completely random. Anyway, I decided to deny it and see what happens. Well, you get this. And then it decides that you're in the middle of a North Sea. And the branches are close to the, obviously have both. And I've then moved to central London, somewhere in North London where I live, and looked at a list of branches. And can anyone tell me why they use different colors for different ones? So usually this is where a project manager makes a note and says, note to self, I need to remind the designer to just start some random colors because colors are nice. Doesn't make any sense. There is a meaning behind that, and you can find it if you read their helps, but it doesn't say anything there. Anyway, that's it, right? We better have time for anything else, like for lunch. And after lunch, they decide to be agile. This is where every bad thing starts. Right? Anyway, I won't waste time going through the app actually on my phone and the screen to see how bad it is. But every single page it actually loads the content from the website. If the phone has really bad reception, it can take up to 2 minutes for a page to load. It's not only that, but when you go down inside the structure, when you go up a level, it tries to load the content again. It doesn't even caches the content of the previous page. Anyway, that's my rant. It's 2012. You shouldn't build websites like this on a mobile, because that's a website. That's not an iPhone app at all. Well, the only reason probably they put in the App Store is they have to tick a box. We have an iOS app. It doesn't provide any security. It doesn't provide. Actually, I'll be afraid to log in. I'll be honest. I didn't log in, but I'll be afraid to log in because I don't know what they do. Anyhow, that's my end of the rant. Right? So from now on, I'll be a developer. So, can someone tell me what's prototyping? By the way, I didn't expect so many people. And it's not a bad thing, but yeah. So can you tell me what's a prototype? Why do you need to do prototypes? Probably that's the reason you came here for me to tell you, right? So prototype is something like this. A workable model that you can use to show something, that something happened. Obviously in this case it's a joke. But why do we prototype? Well, usually when we start building an app, you have different paths that a lot of people take. If you're a developer, the first instinct is to open Excel or whatever ID you use and start writing code. That's the worst thing you can do. Literally the worst thing you can do. So let's think of as a developer that has a bit of experience. And when you get a new idea, you approach it from the right point. So we all have this client or project manager that comes around with an idea. And usually it can be at different stages. So what sort of things do you expect? Well, if it's a friend or a client in experience, they have this, oh, suddenly I have this idea. Does it exist? Probably it does exist. But they want to build the next line of words and get rich quicker schemes. Or probably they have this crazy idea where the wants to do something that probably is not possible. If you're lucky, you'll get a brief from the client. And if you're even luckier, you get a list of requirements, or sometimes you get wireframe sketches. And those are the clients that you always want to have. The ones that actually think of a problem before they come to you. Not that they waste their time, but that means they actually invested a bit of effort in the idea, rather than just throwing stuff around and wasting your time. I mean, we all have clients that literally just send you briefs or some sort of, 2 paragraphs asking you for a price, right? And you have to do all the thinking, all the research, and most of the time, 90% is just, it's not worth it. So, things that they ignore when they do this sort of things. Well, on the mobile device, how many of you actually work on mobile business work? Okay, so this is good for you as well. So they're quite different things from what you have on the desktop, or even on a native app that you have on the desktop. What I mean by desktop, I mean worse. So you have a small size. You have a limited hardware, although this is becoming less and less of a problem. You have all sorts of different things happening. But also you have new interactions, new ways to consume that content. It's not about clicking and pointing stuff. It's about gestures, about moving screens and so on. So, can you guess what's the difference between wireframing and prototyping? That's another concept that a lot of people get it wrong. The difference is the level of interactivity between those. So when you get a wireframe, it's usually static screens that you have in a big document, in a big PDF. Prototype is something actually workable, something you can hold in your hand and use. So how do you build great apps? Well, I have this method that I've applied for a while, and I think it works quite well. I don't necessarily go for it all the time, especially at the bottom part, but at the top, it's an absolute must. So when you get a list of features, there are 2 main things that you need to do. One is to filter that list to make sure that you work on a single problem, and another one is to split it into 2 different problems if the problem is too big. So you see this with Facebook these days, for example. They have this big monolithic app, and now they're splitting it into 2 different apps because it just doesn't make sense to have one single app for everything, right? So you have a messages app, and you have, because the user will actually open an app thinking about something, and by having different apps on the user phone, you go straight into closer to the content that they need to have rather than clicking several buttons. But one thing that is kind of specific to iOS is this application definition statement. Now this is something that Apple had. By the way, this is a bit specific iOS, but it doesn't apply only to iOS. So I'm using iOS because that's what I'm doing as my main job. But this applies to any sort of mobile operating system. So this application definition statement is literally a phrase or a sentence that you should write before you start building an app. And you should print it in big characters and stick it on the wall next to your TV. Because a lot of people forget what they're doing. And they're starting adding things and they're starting, oh, this will be pretty to have, this will be shiny, this will be making that interaction. It doesn't work like that. So what's a definition, application definition statement? That's what Apple is having, and if you don't know what the HEGs are the human interface guidelines. And Apple had a document for mobile and a document for Mac or OS 10 for quite a long time. So it's a concise, concrete declaration that the app's main purpose, of its intended audience. So the keywords are highlighted. Concise and concrete, main purpose, and audience. Those are the three things that you need to know before you build anything. Otherwise, you kind of lose track of what you're doing, and you go in wrong directions. And the application definition statement needs to be created absolutely the very first thing to do with the project. It can evolve like anything in life, but it needs to be there. And even if it evolves, it shouldn't go very far from the original, but you should always have it in mind. Another thing you need to have in mind when you write this application definition statement is, by the way, the short for that is ADS, so I'll probably use ADS from now on. You need to solve some sort of user problem. You don't create an app just for the sake of creating it. Yes, some businesses create it just as a marketing technique because they need to be present in that app store. But usually you should solve the user problem, especially if you want to make money from that app. It's as simple as that. By the way, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hands. I want to run it quite interactive, so don't be shy to stop me if I ramble too much. Cool. So, how do you deliver mobile apps to the devices? Well, there are two ways to do it. It says three ways there, right? But I don't agree there is a third way. So one way is a web app. It's a dedicated web app. You can add it as a shortcut to your phone. You can do HTML5. You can have offline content. You can have all sorts of, offline small databases and so on. But it's a web app. It behaves like a website. The second one is native app. So that will be built to take advantage of the full operating system and to interact closely with that operating system. Now, there is absolutely no third way. And the reason I say no third way, because a lot of people use something like PhoneGap. Did any of you use PhoneGap? Right. So the concept behind it is you use the technologies that you know, like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and somehow you build once and deploy everywhere. So if you've been in the industry for a while, we had this before with Java. Java virtual machine. It didn't work. And Adobe's trying again. They tried with Flash, trying now with PhoneGap. It doesn't work. It leads to a really, really bad user experience because the code you write, which actually works on top of WebKit, which works on top of the operating system. So it's really, really slow. But not only that, but think of it, if you try and build just once and deploy everywhere, that means you'll have exactly the same user experience across all the platforms. That kind of doesn't really make sense because an iOS user expects an iOS app. An Android user expects an Android app. We have elements of interface that literally don't exist. Like the toolbar, for example, doesn't exist on Android. The physical back button doesn't exist on iOS. So there is no reason whatsoever you should just use the same interface across different platforms. It just doesn't make sense. And I know a lot of people laugh, but I used to say that you build once, you suck everywhere. That's what it is. So let's look a bit about where we are in terms of strength and weaknesses. So a native app, yes, it does cost a lot of money, but it has really high performance as well if you know what you're doing, right? The web is kind of, it doesn't cost that much money because you can reuse skills in-house. But performance, it's okay. It's not bad because it runs as a website. But then you have this hybrid, they call it hybrid. And this hybrid kind of sits there. So it's actually, in terms of performance, it's less than the website because it runs on top of the website. It has a lot of JavaScript. It uses these huge libraries to deal with, with touches and all the other gestures and so on. And in terms of cost, it's actually cost a fair amount of money because there are still new technologies that we need to learn. It's a new DSL you need to learn to make a specific language. But what's more interesting is, over time it kind of goes like that. It degrades an experience over time. I actually ran yesterday an iOS workshop here, and one of the guys, actually I didn't have a slide yesterday, but he was saying that he wants to learn iOS because he used PhoneGap for the last 2 years for his company. And it's really bad to maintain it. And you know, it's really, really bad to make sure that you're always up to date. And also, it's always a cat and mouse game, because we're always behind in terms of implementing new features. So if Apple adds a new feature in a version of iOS, phone gap will always be behind. Will always take some time to actually build it, right? But that's why I don't believe it's a further way. A lot of people use it, but I think it's a bad way to do things. And that's another rant. Now, this is not to be confused with things like RubyMotion or Xamarin. Although Xamarin has the same problem because they actually they specifically say on their marketing material that you should build once and deploy on all platforms. RubyMotion is, it's a bit different. It's actually created by the same guy that did MacRuby inside Apple. And what it does is it replaces the need for you to learn Objective-C, which is the language that you use in iOS. And it's literally replicating all the frameworks for iOS for Ruby. And what it does, it doesn't create any sort of intermediate code that runs on WebKit. What it does, it converts that Ruby code to Objective-C runtime. So it runs as fast as your Objective-C code. There is no penalty in terms of performance. And this is really good if you know Ruby, for example, or if you know C#. You can run things really, really fast using the technologies that you already know. Obviously, there will be things to learn that are specific to iOS, like delegates, for example. That's a really big notion to understand, but you can still get away with not knowing Objective-C. Right, so now that we saw how the delivery channels, let's look at the type of apps you can build. Right? So, it will sound strange when I talk about different combinations, but we have seriousness on one axis and purpose on the other one. So, let's start with the first one. There's a serious tool. That's a mail app, mail client, right? That's a serious content, serious interface. If you look at the use of colors and everything, it doesn't actually customize anything. It uses the default controls that you get with your operating system. Fun tool. It's a tool that is presented in a fun way. So that one is it's a tool that measures your network speed. Right? It's one single screen. You just press a key button, it goes and does stuff. And it presents in a nice, clever way. Now, fun entertainment, all the games go there, right? Do you recognize the game? It's Water from Disney. It's one of the probably the most successful games. And now, serious entertainment sounds bad, right? It doesn't really make sense. Sometimes those two words are kind of opposite. But it's about serious app to deliver entertainment content. So that's the App Store app. So it delivers apps, it delivers music, it works the same thing for the music store. And there's a fifth one, and finally now this is actually a Xamarin app that you see here. It's written by a friend of mine. It's called Nearest Bus. What it does, you open it, and you don't touch a single thing, and it gives you the information that you need. So you open it up, it looks for your GPS position, finds bus stops around you, finds the closest one, and displays the buses that leave from that station. So imagine when you leave the office, you just open it, and you need to, you can see it at one glance if you need to run the bus stop, or you can actually walk slowly. It's a really good intuitive app. It's one screen. It's a really good app. So I teach prototyping as a one-day session with Skills Map in London. And when I do that, I use an example as a way for people to understand and use it during workshops. So that example is it's a simple countdown timer. So if you think of a countdown you have inside the clock app on your phone, it's a bit like that, but allows you to add a sort of series of countdowns. So if you go, for example, if you use Pomodoro, anyone knows what Pomodoro is? Yeah, so it's a technique where you work 25 minutes, you take 5-minute break, work 25 minutes. It's a way to get throughout the day through the first. For that, all you have to do is have two timers, 25 minutes and 5 minutes, and always have a look. So that's kind of the idea, and that's what we're trying to kind of build. Imagine that you have a client that comes to you with that spec. They just want to have a time. Or they go to the gym and they're doing interval training, so they need to run for 5 minutes, relax for 1 minute, and so on. So what would be the application definition statement for that? That's a good example of what it can be. It can be one version. So it's a simple, and that's a keyword. The countdown collection is what it is, and the intended audience is conscious individuals. It's kind of hard to see there, the highlight, you can tell which one is it for. And the type is, it's a serious tool. And the reason I picked a serious tool is because you don't want to waste time customizing the interface and so on. So you can just drag and drop existing controls. So, before you do a prototype, usually you start with doing a bit of wireframe and understand what screens you have and how they interact. So, what's wireframe? Well, you start with by identifying the main areas that you have. So you can say, I have a screen that does this, and I have a screen that does this, and if you click this button, it goes to this screen, and so on. And you start with a simple thing, and you build up from that, and you usually just start with the main task of the app. And I say this with wireframe, and I'll say this with prototype later on. If you can't afford to throw away your wireframes or your prototypes, you're doing it wrong. Right? It should be a learning exercise. It shouldn't be a document that you give it to your project manager. Although they will ask for it, you can give it a refined version. But you should always afford to throw it away. It's not something you should spend more than 15 minutes on. You shouldn't spend 5 hours trying to make a wireframe really pretty and making sure that you have the right buttons in the right place and so on. I mean, sorry, not in the right place, but in the right colors and the right dimensions and so on. And what I tend to do is, by the way, for timers, I decided that this is the sort of areas that I have. So I'll have a countdown, a simple countdown, then I'll have CRUD for the timer. So if you're developers, you know what CRUD means. It's create, read, update, delete. It's simple operations. I want to have sort of local notifications for that timer. So if I listen to music or if the phone goes into sleep, I want the phone to actually alert me. And that's done through local notification in iOS. And I want to have a collection of those timers, like I said, and maybe have a CRUD on that collection. So you can add collections, remove collections, order things as collections as well. And one thing I tend to do is I either do it on paper or I do it on my iPad. And on my iPad, for this example, I used a very good app called Paper from 53. So not to be confused with the paper app from Facebook. But I tend to do sketching like that. So that's the list of requirements, right? So what I did is I took screenshots as I did sketches and put on the screen so you can see how I did it. So let's start with a simple collection, a simple countdown timer. It's literally just a figure, right? It's a countdown, it can be anything. And then you have a CRUD for that timer. So that means you can edit that timer somehow, you can add or remove timers. The next one is local notification. So that means that somewhere, have a screen where you get local notifications. And when that time is up, it will display the local notifications. Right? The next one will be, I want those timers to be in a collection. So somewhere there, all right, I'll have a list of timers. Right? So each one will actually be one of those timers. If you tap on it, you can go to that and edit it and modify it. And yeah, the same way you can go back from the timer to the collection. So you can go both ways. Now, the next one is the CRUD for collection. So that means I have a collection of collections. Right? So that will be another screen. You can order basically collection, then you can have another screen that lists the collection. So it will list, the top screen will list like Pomodoro or gym training, and then inside the one at the bottom will say 25 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever you decide there. So, the timer will actually have its own screen. So you can see we only have about 4 screens for this app. Right? So this is a simple exercise you can actually do with your client over coffee, and you can kind of get a relatively quick feedback and understand how he thinks about things. In case usually people miscommunicate things, not intentionally, but sometimes things happen. You just, So usually I take that and I put it in like a more formal stuff. So this is where iteration happens. So I can actually throw away those drawings because I already know how things are done. So I started doing something a bit more, looks a bit more programming, if you like. So I tend to use either Keynote or I use only Graph. It's like Visio for Mac. So you start with by clicking on an icon, you get a splash screen, which is the usual stuff you get on the phone. Then you have a list of sequences, and you can add a sequence there, so you can have a recording there. And in the sequence, you can add a timer. So you can see we discover actually 2 new screens because we didn't have an add sequence and add timer in the sequence before. And when you tap on one and select one, you can see a sequence with all the timers in there. And then you can edit that one, and you can see a timer. Also, I've noticed that, what happens if you have a sequence with just one single timer? It'll be kind of pointless to go from list of sequences to sequence to a timer. So you might have a way where we can start it directly from a list of sequences with just one. Yeah, does it make sense? Cool. At least I didn't lose anyway. So, as we saw before, it's about finding what your app is supposed to do, finding the main screens of your app, and so on. And you don't get it right first time. No one gets it right first time. And if you get it right first time, that's quickly. That means you have a lot of experience. So probably you don't really need to learn anything about it. So from now on, you can start doing wireframes. And again, you need to remember that wireframes are just literally screens that have the content that you need to have. One thing you need to be careful is don't put file design in the wireframes. Because the clients will come back and saying that's the wrong shade of yellow. And they completely miss the point. It's not about how it looks, it's about what functionality you have it and how it works. Right? So these are a couple of tools that I used over the years. So I started with hardware tools, if you like. So stencils and paper, which they were quite popular some years ago. You can go as far as building your own things with right dimension, and you can draw on the paper and so on. It's quite tedious. You don't have Command Z, so you can't undo stuff. It sounds really strange until you actually feel like you need it when you draw things. And yeah, again, I use something called Graph. So this one allows you to create different canvases. So you can see the list of canvases on the left. It doesn't allow you to have links between canvases, and this is why it's a wireframe tool, not a prototype tool. But all those elements are actually different elements, so they're squares with strings in them. There is a way to get more stencils in there. So there's a website called Graphotopia. Unfortunately, it's not free. It used to be free. But you can get different stencils, and this is not necessarily for mobile apps. You can use it for anything to do sketching and wireframes. And in there, for example, I have some sketches, some stencils for iOS, and you can drag an iPhone and use it as a main background, and then put elements on top of it, just by dragging and dropping. You can arrange things. And if you get the professional version of OmniGraffle, it allows you to share layers between screens. So if you work on a particular tab, you can have iPhone on the tab and shared across 10 different screens, so it's easier to use. This is realistic wireframes. I see a lot of people doing, I'm talking Photoshop. A lot of people are using it because they look better, but it leads to those problems I just said about colors and missing the point about, it's not about font size and things like that. There's a website, an agency called TCAMLAX, and they have PhDs for pretty much all the mobile platforms. And you can have different add-ons. So from now on, I'm going to run some demos so you can see how easy it is to do some of those things. How's this one? So I'll mirror my screen so you can see what I see as well. All right, so if you use Photoshop, there's a very good tool called DevWeek.
DevWeek 2014.
Ah, yes.
D.
Yeah.
Lowercase w.
Lowercase w, okay. That makes it easy.
I would find an app password for one place.
So it was
All uppercase 2014.
lowercase.
It's definitely capital D and all W.
So it's capital W as well. Okay.
Maybe it's getting that to work. I definitely have a.
Oh yeah, it works. Yeah. Thank you. So the way I do usually demos is I create a wireless with my Mac and connect all my devices to that. So now it's connected, so I should be able to see everything. So what's happening there? That's my phone, right? So we can see the yeah. This is how it works. There you go. So yeah, obviously it's very secure. There you go. Tick box. Accept. I'm not kidding. I think it actually loads content. It loads every single time. It's like it doesn't trust the device. So if I go to the maps, okay. No. Okay. There you go. So it works. It kind of refreshes. Puts it in the middle of nowhere. So, but yeah, the stuff I was telling you earlier. If you go to help, you'd expect this to be inside the app, right? Because it's specific to the app, most of it. You wouldn't expect to have about the app and go into it and get content, and when you go back, load it again. Right, so if you go in and you go back, load the content again. You can't really tell if it's a connection here, but that's the idea. Now, we're discussing about the tool. So this is the tool that allows you to demo apps or demo wireframes on the phone. If you put the wireframes, the image, or prototype as a sort of whatever, I use Google PDFs as a way to the prototype. I'm sure in a second how I do it. That's how you do it, and that's how you. Oh, this is the other app from HSBC, in case you want to see the other one. It's as bad as this one. I have the tabs at the top.
How much of all these things you've been demoing are specific to?
You mean in terms of apps?
Yeah.
HSBC does? Or sorry,
How many of the tools you've been showing only work for Apple? Are they all cross-platform?
Most of them work for Apple. Some of them are cross-platform as well. Live View, I think it has a client for Windows as well, and it has a client for Android. Scala definitely has a client for Android, so you can use it for Android phones. Unfortunately, because I use a Mac, I use a lot of tools for Mac. But the main tool that I'm going to use is Keynote, so you can do exactly the same thing with PowerPoint or OpenOffice. So that's completely cross-platform. Just get rid of that. Right. So. So those are kind of a tool that you use to do wireframes. So now we're going one step further, so we go into the prototypes. So the prototypes are the final product that you want to present to your clients. You want to present something that they can actually use, something they can touch, and they can give you feedback or on things. Not necessarily the interface, but how it behaves, how it transitions between screens, if it makes sense to go from one screen to the other, and so on. So there are a couple of different types of prototype apps that you can use. So you'll see that a lot of them are web-based, and with this one, it's fairly easy to get started. Anyone can do it. Most of them require no technical skills. You just drag and drop things. Sometimes what you have to do is upload images, and the images will be on screen. And then you'll have, in this one, proto reel, you upload images and then you define which areas are hot areas. So if you tap on them, it goes to a different screen. You can create that link between screens. And all is done through HTML JavaScript. It doesn't require anything, and you can even send a private URL to the client, and the client can see it in the browser. It's as simple as that. Both of these are commercial products. They're pretty good. So this one has a quite impressive list of clients. Visual tools, they're a bit more design rich. They offer much closer experience to the real thing. So there's a very good tool called Briefs. It's quite expensive. It's about $100, but it's a really good tool to do prototypes for iOS, iPad, and Mac. Another one. Did anyone hear about origami from Facebook? How many of you use Macs? Sorry, I hope it didn't go on camera. Wow.
You in the wrong room?
I'm sure you are. I'm definitely am because my name was bad. No, it's a good way to get paid. Anyway, origami is a tool created by Facebook, and it works on top of something called Quartz Composer, which allows you to create small movies and small interactions that work on the Mac as a movie. So they have all these libraries that you can download and install, and I can show you a quick example of how it works. And probably this will convince you to get a Mac. Maybe not. Right. I think it's in here. So this one, hopefully it'll get flickering. I usually get on. There you go. So these are just images. Nothing else. So you have an image that is the phone, and then you have an image for each tab. And by tapping on the tab at the bottom, you switch between images. But you can add things to make it look a bit more native. So you can add this spring here that makes it look like it's a right app. It doesn't do anything, so you can't really interact with that. It's just an image. But it allows you to create quite an experience really close to what you have in the real product, especially in terms of motions and how it switches between different screens. It's really, really powerful, actually. And it's complicated as well. So that's the code for the stuff you just saw now. So it's really complicated, and you can get really messy. Now this is actually the main part of the talk. So it only took us 45 minutes to get here, but this is actually the one I use to do prototypes for clients. So I use Keynote. Obviously, you can use PowerPoint, you can use OpenOffice, you can do whatever you want. I use Keynote purely because I'm used to it. I've been using it for a long time, and it's really easy for me to put things together. And I use it in conjunction with a library called Keynotopia. Again, it's a commercial product. It's not free, but it allows you to save time by not having to create your own controls. So it's a big library that offers you literally drag and drop elements, like navigation bars, status bars, all the buttons and so on. And they have different libraries for different operating systems, for different versions. And it's really easy to put things together. One thing you can't really get across when you use something like Keynote is the interaction. How do you show that the user needs to scroll the screen to go to the next bit? So for that, I use some gestures that are from a very known guy in the UX community. It's called Luke Wroblewski, if I get the name right. And with that, you can actually put it on, put one of those gestures on the screen and make it a clickable area. So when the user taps on it, it goes to another screen. But it kind of tells the user that they need to scroll to go to that screen because they tap on that particular gesture. So it's a really good way to have that feedback for movement. A couple of things that are kind of specific to Keynote, but you probably have this in PowerPoint, is you can change settings to allow the presentation to only work based on links. So it will work like we're using it now. When I tap the screen, it goes to the next slide. It will only advance based on links. So that way you can jump between the screens without having the problem where you click outside any links, it goes to the next slide, which doesn't really make sense. And another trick is never to go to use relative positions. So don't have a link going to the next slide because you'll end up inserting another slide in there, and they'll go to the wrong place. So always use a number there. So go to a particular slide with a certain number. If you insert slides in there, it will change the number accordingly. So remember the right position. And when I've done with Keynote, I usually give a sit with a client and go through both of the presentation, or I can actually export as a PDF, as a clickable PDF. What that does is, I can send it by email, they can put it on their phone or on their tablet, and they can sit there and just click through it. And it feels like a real thing. I'll show you an example in a second. So, who wants to see how easy it is to build one? Yeah, sure, there's one. Hopefully with their own page. So, I used to have it as an iOS 6 version. So I'll just switch Wi-Fi's again, just to show you how it looks on the phone. So what I have here, I have a special app. It's nothing tricky. There's nothing there's nothing else than just a glorified PDF reader. The only difference is it doesn't allow you to go to the next slide by scrolling. It only allows you to go by links, which is what we want. I think this thing doesn't really work. It's Wi-Fi. Right, so what I have is I have this app called Kinotopia, which is works in parallel with that library. It's actually from the same people. But what I did, remember that timer's app? I actually have a clickable PDF in here, right? And if you send this together with the app to the client, so the app you can download from App Store, and if you send the PDF, you can import it fairly easily there. But what should happen is I can actually tap on it. So what I decided to do for some clients, just to make it a bit more obvious, to tell them which ones are actually active areas. Now that's a bit of a red shadow. So that's not part of the design, it's intentionally so they know where to tap. So look what happens if I press start. It goes like that. So you can tap start, and it shows where it is, so it obviously doesn't move. But you can have things like click pause, continue, skip, goes to the next one, stop, yes. Stops, goes back. So it feels like a real thing, but that's a clickable PDF, right? And clients actually really love things like this because they get immediate feedback of what's happening. And I mean, it's less a problem these days, but back 3-4 years ago, most of them had no idea how an iPhone should behave and what it actually looks like when they put something on their phone. So you can add things like, add a timer, start it. You can add it, and you can do tricks like this, and you can make it look exactly like a real thing, right? So it looks like it's moving, but it just switches between two different slides, nothing else. So how do we build things like this? Just switch this off. So the way I normally do it is I have this one. I have this library that I downloaded, so that has all the controls that I need, and we have different slides for different
different controls. So if I go for each one, you can see what they have. So different elements to do the main interface and navigation and so on. Buttons, tables, different styles in different places. Different pickers, so you have a date picker and then you have a list picker, and times and different alerts. So pretty much everything is covered. So what I did is I've actually started building one this morning, and it's this one. So the way I did it is I've created, let's start from scratch actually. Let's create a new slide, created white. So it's it's a traditional slide, nothing else. So in Keynote, you can actually modify the size of the slide. So here you can say, on the custom size, and I know my phone is 640 by 1136, and that gives me this nice format. So now when I play it, it looks like a screen for the phone, right? So here I can start adding things. One thing I also like doing is to modify the slides and kind of get rid of this double-click stuff, because it just gets in the way. So that one is if you edit the master slides. I think you can do it through here. Yeah. I'll just get rid of stuff. So I need just the empty one. And get rid of everything. I only have the black one. I don't need anything else. So now I can start doing things, right? So the first thing you probably want to do is to kind of make it look like you start from a screen. So what I have is, and I'll go back between this one and the other one. I just created literally took a screenshot of my phone, just like that. Right. And after that, I said, well, let's create a small icon. So what I have here is I have an icon with a label. So that's a group. You can see it's literally an image with a label, and I tend to put them together because they will be. You want to make them touchable, both of those. So even if it taps on the label or the icon, it goes to a place. So for that one, we'll need to add a new slide. Right? So going back to the first one, what we need to do is link this one to the next slide. So the way you do it in Keynote, you link it to number 2 slide. Right? So now if we play this, if I click on that, it goes to the next slide. Literally simple things. Then I want to display a splash page, just to make it a bit more interesting for them. So I have here, just created literally just a rectangle. So that's just a rectangle with blue background and label. And then I want to go to the next screen. With this one, you kind of need to touch something to go to the next screen. So what I do is with this label, I link it to the next screen. Right? So now I have this thing where I can just go inside and then go to the main screen. And this will be the main screen of the app. So we saw that in our main screen of the app we're building is the sequence of sequences, right? So here, what do we need? Well, it's a navigation thing, so you'll have a navigation controller at the top. And this, you know which ones you want based on the experience. As you build stuff, you understand what things you need, and as you have more and more screens, you understand that how you're supposed to navigate between screens. So what I'll do here now is I'll just go to this library and see, well, this looks like a navigation thing, so I'll just copy it from here, and I'll drop it here. And I'll call it, let's call it times. Now I don't want this button here, in the middle, and I don't want this bit here. Now that will be, one thing we didn't add actually is the status bar at the top, because the phone always has a status bar at the top. So we'll get one of these. Let's get the one in blue, one, and paste in here. The one like that. It doesn't have to be precise, but it kind of lets you see what you have. And here we said we're going to have different rows for different sequences. So let's add a row and call it Pomodoro, another row call it gym training. So I'll go to I think it's on the third slide, and I think I need something like this because it needs a description and then some sort of labels underneath. So paste this, make it a bit bigger, and then just copy that. And again. So this one we'll call it, and leave a bit of space for images. You can do it in different ways, but leave it like that. And then here, what we want to do is, what exactly is happening? So we'll say 20 minutes, 5 minutes, and you can say recurrent. Right, so that will give a description of what that thing is. Now, we'll look at the next one, and it's interval training. And here we'll have, let's say, 3 minutes, 1 minute. Sorry, here I should keep it consistent. I should save that. And I don't have the recurrent in that case. I'll just leave it like that. Now, the second one, remember we said we can have a sequence with just one timer. So how do we represent that here? Well, we'll just write a timer. So that won't have a name as such. The name will be timer. So we'll just call it, 55 minutes. Right? So we have a kind of list of sequences. I happen to have some artwork, so I'll show you some resources later where you can get your icons. But so I can use that icon for this one and for this one, because it's kind of goes from one value to the next. And this one has just one timer. Oops. Right? And it kind of looks okay. It starts to actually show something. So another thing we need here is remember another screen was to add a sequence. So usually the way you do that is you add a button to the top. That's kind of convention. So let's go and find a button, one of those fancy ones. Yeah, we need a blue one, so we'll just use one of these. I'll put it here, and just put it out. And then we'll probably want some buttons here, so when you tap them, it starts that particular sequence. So I'll create some duplicates here. So that's kind of how it kind of looks. So let's go with our screen. So we'll create another screen here. Let's reuse the header from here, and we'll just call it timer. Let's use the status bar from here as well. And what we want to do is when we click on this button, it goes to that particular screen. Now, remember we said we can add either sequences or we can add individual timers. So why not have, for example, a picker or a selector that comes from the bottom that says, I want, which one you want to create. Do you want to create a sequence or do you want to create a timer? So for that, the best way to do it is kind of fade the content that you have here and add some stuff on top. So what I'll do is I'll duplicate this slide. I'll add a shape, kind of cover it, hide it a bit. I'll make it black, and I'll make it transparent like that. So it looks like the content is faded underneath. And what you'll need is one of those pickers, which is this one. So let's use this one and this one. So put them in here. And you can say add timer or add sequence. And obviously we only have two, so we'll do it like that. Right, so we'll make it smaller because it's kind of big. Also, I know it has a separator here, so let's get that in here as well. So, going back to the previous one, when we click add, we want this to go to screen number 4. Right? And also when we click cancel, we want to go back to screen number 3. let's see what's happening now when you play this thing. So we go to this screen, we have timers, click out, nope, we don't want that. So you see it starts to feel like a native thing, it starts to feel like the real, the real thing, just by going between different slides. Any questions? I can go with this for hours, but it's, you can adapt it to your own environment. You can even use this. Do you have a question?
You have like a master page, so see how you had to put the timer and the heading in that on multiple pages? You have something that you can have like a master page, so you don't have to keep doing that.
Yeah, you have something called a master slide, and you can create different ones. I tend to create different master slides for different parts of the app. So usually I'll have a master slide that works for logins and registration because that doesn't have any tab bars at the bottom. And then I'll have a main one that has all the tab bars, and then copy that and kind of override each tab bar to highlight it for different areas and select which one you want. So yeah, definitely you don't want to do that all the time. Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of how it works. And then you export it to PDF, and that's it. You just get a check from the client. I actually went as far as because prototype is quite such an important thing in the life cycle of an app. And it's it's kind of a lot of things depend on the prototype. Sometimes people don't know what they want, and you end up with a prototype that doesn't resemble what they want in the original place, or what they think they want in the original place. So let's go through some other some other ways to prototype. I was hoping more to have more Mac users here as developers, but another way to prototype it's actually using Xcode, which is the IDE we use to develop apps. Xcode, about 2 generations ago, we got something called storyboards that works similar to what we used to have for Flash development. If you remember the stage of the Flash, if you use Flash, you can create different screens and then just kind of have a timeline. And here we have something called scenes, and then you can create segues between scenes. So you can end up with something like this. This is actually a real app from one of my clients. And you have different areas. You can see what you have. So when you build a prototype, you can actually have just images in all of those. And then link bits of an image to different other streams. And when you build it, it's actually building a native app. Yes, it runs images, but it is a native app. Obviously, that has advantages and disadvantages. You need to be a developer, so you need to know kind of what you're doing. And you need to use what's called an ad hoc distribution. Sometimes it's hard for clients for them to understand what they have. And they need to have a device. That's the thing. In order to install the app, they need to have a device. And there's some other ones called experimental. And they're called experimental because they're kind of strange, but they work. So one of them is called Pop, and it's actually an iPhone app. What it allows you to do is, if you draw your screens on paper, you can take images of that paper, and then create like hot areas, and it allows you to view your app as a hot area. So I have an example here. So this example actually comes with the app. So here what they did is they drew this bits of diagrams on paper, and then literally they took a photo of that paper, right? And also what they did is they created that hot area. So that one actually goes to another screen. So when you play it, that tells you what you need to do. He actually goes between images just by you tapping on different things. And it's really, really quick and easy to actually sit at the client and draw some things. And you need to be able to draw. I won't be able to do that. But if you have any templates or anything like that, it's fairly easy to draw diagrams and just have it actually work on the phone. It's a pretty good tool. Oops. I think I've just killed humans. I would. Because you'll have things that look small, that take a lot of development time, and they just seem trivial to the client. The client will think, oh, I'm sure they'll love that. But it might have to be an interface with some weird system. I had a client where I had to interface with the WDSL API, which is an absolute pain for iOS, because it's great. Now another one, and that's why I have a board here, is to use, imagine if you're with a client in a session, right? How do they normally draw their ideas? They usually do it on paper or on the boards, right? So what happens if they draw on the board? How can you visualize it? Well, you can use a combination of a whiteboard with live view on the phone, and you can have on the phone what you draw on the board. Right? So, I'll use FaceTime for now, and then start live view, and start live view here as well. So you can see what I see, right? So if you, so I have a board here, right? So if I start drawing things, like if I, let's say I have a screen like that, and it has a navigation bar, it has a back button here, and some sort of text, and then another here. Imagine if you get the setup right so it fits the screen. You'll be able to actually get a feel of what's happening. They can play with on the phone, they can see how big things are while you actually drawing. So the feedback loop is actually really, really small. You can throw away paper and start again and so on, but it's really easy to see what's happening. And also another thing you can have with this is this image can go over the internet, right? So anyone can actually see what's happening. You can do a feed using FaceTime. You can send it to someone. That person will actually be able to see on their phone what you're drawing on a board. And it's really powerful to do collaboration like that when you can't be in the same place.
So your live view to the phone can be done online?
So again?
So the live view to the phone can be done online?
Yeah, you can use live view on your computer. So if you are, for example, if I'm in London and someone else is in Berlin, that person in Berlin can get a feed from Skype or whatever. And then they use live view to put that feed on their phone.
Yeah, so you can still do that technique with the one you demoed earlier.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We benefit from it. The only restriction with live view is it only takes a bit of your screen. So you need to fit the content in there. So it's kind of hard to get with Keynote, especially if you go full screen. But we can use other techniques to use it with. Also, I've suggested earlier Ruby. So unfortunately, because there are no Ruby people actually in the house, I'll skip it here because I had some demos of how we just use command line. And the good thing about Ruby Motion, and it's probably something I'm going to use more and more, it has it kind of inherits the good things from Rails and from Ruby. It has a full testing environment. It allows you to test things properly. It literally opens the simulator and does all the interfacing, it touches the buttons, look for different values in different places, and make sure that you don't break anything when you add the latest features. It's a commercial product, and I'm not sure about you, but I would rather pay with money than with my privacy for things. So I actually like when I pay for things. That sounds strange, but how many of you use Android phones? Okay, quick question. Who made more money from Android, Google or Microsoft last year? Did you know that Google paid Microsoft last year $2 billion for licensing Android? Microsoft is actually making more money from Android than Google directly. So you should be careful because you're not the customer, you're the product. Anyway, some other things that you might want to use money for prototypes. You should, icons again. They have really good deals on that. They should get it for $25. And loads of icons and use for prototypes.
There's a website called Sample Patterns that is free. You can download really nice patterns to use on your backgrounds and things like that. So, because obviously on iOS, we kind of moved away from skill morphism, so you don't have any lever or will or method anymore, so you kind of need to use abstract stuff. But why do we use prototype? Why do we need prototype? So, in my mind, there are two main reasons why prototype. One, to ensure that you know what you're doing. I don't write a single line of code until I do prototype. Literally not a single line of code. Because I think that writing code before you write, you know what you're supposed to write, it's a waste of time. Two, it insulates me from creeping costs from clients. And that's why I split my projects usually into stages. I charge for prototype and I charge for build as a separate thing. And there's a clause in the contract where I can actually get away from it if I'm not happy with the prototype. Because I think a lot of people don't know what they want to build, especially new businesses, and I don't want to build something that I'm not proud of. Simple as that. And by having a prototype, I can ensure that the price I actually give for the build of that little prototype, it's exactly what it's supposed to be. I don't want to have to, to give a price and then double it and another 50% just to ensure that we're creeping costs. It's better if you know exactly what you're building. And usually to get a price for a prototype, it's not a huge project. It takes mostly a couple of days, in terms of work time, to actually build a prototype, get feedback, and have it ready for full prototype. And I have another session tomorrow if you want to learn about iOS. Actually, it's a good ground to talk about this. So it's 90 minutes where I compress 2 days of iOS training that I normally train. I did one yesterday and it was quite good. It was quite a challenge to compress 2 days in one, so we'll see how it goes from 2 days to 90 minutes. And any questions? Go for it.
So you don't write a line of code?
Yes.
So you have a prototype?
Correct.
Obviously, what you've shown us only does like UI prototyping. But if you need to prototype something that's like you're saying like the WSDL,
Yes.
it's difficult to do on iOS.
Yes. But that's not a prototype. You kind of do the research as part of doing research for the price. But you're not building things. I mean, yeah, I can try code, I can try things, but that's a cost that anyone has in part even predicting how things will be. I do a bit of research to see that in libraries. In iOS, we have recently something called CocoaPods that works in the same way as gems in Ruby and Rails. So functionality, open source libraries, or even if they're closed source, you have access to them and you can use it free. So it's part of the research process, and it's a cost that you always
Is
have.
that research part of the prototype phase?
No, it's part of the
Development phase.
Sorry.
See how you did the wireframes at the start and then we're all sketchy, but then when you get to the prototyping stage, it's very much, this is what the client will be getting. Have you ever had it where the client wants something and you prototyped it, but then when you go to code it, you're like,
That's a change of requirement, and that's why I do it as 2 stages.
No, but when they change the requirement because the customers define what they want, but then the implementation part of it is the challenge. And so you need to
Well,
work
that's my problem with development. So if I, at the end of the day, it's, I gave them a cost. If I can't, do that job in whatever I've allocated for that job, that's my problem. It's not the client's problem. It's as simple as that. It goes both ways. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, thank you very much. That's my Twitter handle. My email address is there if you need help with anything. And, yeah, don't forget. Thank you.